Welcome back to another episode of the AmandaFest podcast. If you've been listening along, I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you for coming back again and again. The intention of AmandaFest podcast is simple. It's to inspire and empower our listeners to take aligned action towards their dream life, whatever that looks like for you. I am so excited about today's episode. I have one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Miss Dana May Jamison, here to talk to us about all the things. We're going to focus today on saying yes and manifesting a big, beautiful, crazy, wildly abundant life. And Dana is the absolute perfect person to do that. She is an actress, a comedian, a poet, and she's a producer of an epic nonprofit production company called Soul Good Media, which I'm also a part of. We'll talk about soon. And the purpose of that production company is to turn media into medicine. Oh, and before I forget, if you guys stick around until the end, we have a very, very special surprise performance by Miss Dana May Jamison. So you definitely are not going to want to miss that. As we've done with every episode, before we drop into this juicy conversation, I'd love to take a moment to just get present for a second. I know we're all running around doing a million different things. And I just want to invite you, if it's safe to do so, to maybe close your eyes. I always like to put a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly just to get present and remind myself that I'm here in my body. And I invite you to focus in on your breath, just noticing it, not trying to change it, not trying to do anything different. Just notice your breath going in and out. And now with each inhale, I want you to think of something that you're calling in for today. And with your exhale, I want you to think of something you'd like to let go of today. So we're going to take a couple breaths with those thoughts in mind. Inhale, something we're calling in. Exhale, something we're letting go of. Take a couple breaths together in and out. Inhale and exhale. Inhale. And on this last exhale, I want you to feel free to make any noise you want. Shake your body. Let anything go that you need to let go of. Welcome. Welcome to your body and welcome to AmandaFest. Dana, it's so good to have you.
Oh, it's so good to be with you. What an amazing community that you've created. You're the perfect person for this. So I'm just like, we haven't caught up in a long time. So I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to catch up and mustard each other, right?
Yeah, we're just catching up with an audience. You know, Dana, you're one of those people that every single time I see you and walk away from an interaction with you, my whole entire body is just like buzzing with possibility and excitement. You light me up in ways that I can't even describe. And I am so, so, so honored to have you here today. And I'm so honored to get to share you with my audience. If the people that are listening to this don't already know you, they've absolutely never met anybody like you in their whole entire lives.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you. What an introduction. What an intro. I feel the same way about you too, by the way. Every time we hang out, every time we talk on the phone, no matter where you're at on the planet, because you're constantly traveling. You've been like a nomad for the past, year and a half. Every time we talk, even if it's not in person, I'm lit up. I'm all charged up. So thank you for who you be.
Thank you.
Me.
I wanted to start the conversation off. You know, you and I, we did have a quick little catch up last week, which was the impetus of you coming on here. But I remember, as you do, you were telling me this crazy story that started something like, Oh, and then I randomly was on a fishing trip with 5 strange men in the middle of Peru, like in a canal. Like your stories go all over the place. They're the craziest things in the world, and it got us to talking about how you and I both, as human beings, end up in the wildest, most random situations constantly. And
Mm-hmm.
people ask me all the time, and I'm sure they ask you, they're like, how does all this, how do one, all these random things happen to you? And two, how do all these amazing things happen for you? Like, what are you doing? What's going on here? I had this conversation recently with someone else, and I had this aha moment when he asked me that question, because also like people giving us things. I mean, we have so many similarities with just all of these things that we attract, we manifest. And I realized that one of the things that I do, that's also something that you do, is I feel like we are the people that say yes
Yeah.
to things that most people would probably say no to.
You're absolutely correct.
And that yes opens up doors to
Mhm.
insane situations, sometimes
Yeah,
good, sometimes bad. But I
totally.
think you and I have the ability and capacity to do that. I feel like because we trust ourselves enough to
Mhm.
know that we're safe, to know that we know how to navigate sometimes
Exactly.
tricky situations.
Yep.
And it's there's also this level of play and curiosity of like what's going
Yes,
to
that's
happen
what
if
it
I open
is.
that door.
That's exactly what it is. It's cultivating the energy of saying yes and just staying on that vibration. So no matter what comes, for example, you have a crazy story. I'm making it about you. Remember, you were going to a festival and you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to get here. You end up at like, you're like, I'm just going to go to this cafe and I'm just going to probably potentially maybe meet somebody that has a way to get here. You're just in the vibration constantly of saying yes, which is like, yeah, curiosity.
Well,
It's like that.
it's a combination. I mean, AmandaFest, we talk about this all the time, right? We talk a lot about mindset. We talk a lot about thinking about what you want to do and creating your dream life and blah, 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 blah. But one of the biggest pieces of it is this aligned action element, right? Which we've been talking
Mhm.
about episode after episode. But what does that aligned action look like, right? For
Mhm.
me, trying to sneak into this festival, this was Glastonbury in the UK. I'll probably do a solo episode talking all about how I did this because
Good,
it's just
because it's a magical
it's a
story.
crazy story,
Yeah.
but I remember my mindset going into it. It was twofold, right? There was a piece of me that was like, I'm making this happen. Failure's
Mhm.
not an option here. This is going to happen. And the goal the goal was open-ended, right?
Mhm.
I was committed to having an experience and trying my hardest to make it happen. And so there was an element to that story where, I mean, I don't want to tell the whole story because it's a really long one, but there was a part in that journey where I could have given up, right? Where things weren't working out. This plan wasn't working. I wasn't going to get in, da da
Mhm.
da. And I had a backup plan, which was to go back to my friend's mom's house, who lived like 5 minutes away,
Mhm.
or I was invited to stay at this glamping site, right outside of the festival with a possibility of maybe getting in and networking and figuring it out the next day. But I
Mhm.
remember telling myself, I was like, if I leave, if I get in a cab and go back to my friend's mom's place, it's over. The experience is
Mhm.
done. There is
Mhm.
no possibility of this happening. If I
Yeah.
stay, sure, there's a chance that I won't get in, but there's a chance that I might.
Yeah. Right? It's that possibility. It's like the optimism of the possibility of something amazing happening and just staying on that path, staying so true to that. And no matter what, it's a win-win, even if you were to go back, but you're like, the potential, the possibility, the excitement, the curiosity. It's like that energy, I think, is everything.
It's
No matter what happens. But that happens in our lives so often because we're like, oh, but there's a possibility that something amazing and magical is going to happen. And that's how it continues to perpetuate into being like, oh, I'm in Honduras and I just caught a 50-pound fish on a boat with locals. Like, it just, you end up in these crazy situations because you're just subconsciously saying yes because you know.
Can you just tell us a little bit about that story of like how that even and my favorite part about Dana is she'll allude to stories in the most casual way possible, as if like, duh, of course I was on a fishing trip in Honduras last week. And I'm like, what? With who? What do you mean? Like, and she's like, oh. Let me tell you.
It's so random. It wasn't. It was completely for pleasure. I'm usually traveling. You know how much I travel and I work, but I just got done finishing this episode in Big Bear, and I got back, and I was just like, this girl needs a vacation. And so I had a friend, an artist that I met in Virginia randomly. And I met him. His name's Peter. He's amazing. And I met him with my parents during New Year's. And he's an artist. And so he drew pictures of me and my family. And so I haven't seen him since New Year's. And we met for maybe like 4 hours. And he was like, Dana, I'm going to Honduras and I'm doing it's a fishing trip. I stay with locals. It's like the total local experience. And he's going with his cousin who's bringing his friend. And it's like a group of 6 guys. And he's like, do you want to come? And I was like, of course. It's kind of how it happens. But like cut to
a stranger. You're just like, sure, totally. Let's go.
But I just, the amount that we've connected since then, even though it's not a lot, it's very deep and it's very meaningful. And so it builds that trust. He's also met my parents. It's like,
it's the type of friend too, where it's like, oh, hey, let's do this. And it's like, I'll book the flight. I'll book it. Like, don't totally tempt me with a good time.
Totally. Yeah. Don't tempt me. I'm ready to go fishing. Night fishing, by the way, because you get bigger fish night fishing. The bait for night fishing is like the width of this.
Wow.
And then you catch I mean, it's the experience. That's what I'm in it for the experience. And
right.
With all of my work, I always go off the beaten path. I'm never doing the touristy route. I'm always doing like, how do the people live here? How do the people live here that's parents have been here, that's grandparents have been here? Like, what is their life like? What is the local life like? Like, that shit lights me up. And so when I got that invitation, I was like, ooh. And it was amazing. It was amazing. So I left lit up and I met friends that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And, I know you attract the same situations, but people are like, wait, you just went to Honduras? And you're like, with who? And I'm like, well, what is his last name? And I'm like, gosh, I just stuff like that. And people are like, you are kind of living over.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit because I obviously know all the amazing, amazing things that you're working on. Let's talk about what is your work right now. What is this traveling production company? What's the show you're working on? For those of you listening, I just gave her a really obnoxious wink.
I love you so much. I love that you've been a part of it since the kind of like the birth, the creation of all of it, really.
I'm such a fan. And by the way, like even backing up just one more second, do you remember how we met?
On the beach?
No. The first time we connected.
Okay, because that's a tricky question. Because I remember the first time we met, it was on the beach and we were taking photos together.
Yeah, but I don't remember that.
Yeah. Oh, roller skating, right? Wait.
Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not thinking of the first time we met. Oh yeah, we did meet roller skating. We did meet at the roller disco. I was thinking of when I saw you perform. I saw you do your spoken word poetry.
Really?
I just remember being like, you're one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. I worked in entertainment for a long time. I grew up in theater. One of my special skills is that I'm really good at finding talent. I've just always prided myself on my taste, and I've always been able to pick out, of a crowd of, hundreds, who's the one kid that's going to make it to Broadway? Who's the one kid that's going to be successful? I just always had that eye, and then obviously took that into a career in casting and talent rep and all those things. And I remember watching you and hearing you speak for the first time. And I thought you were wild and fun and cool and all the things before. But when I saw you perform, I was just absolutely blown away. Like, completely blown away.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that makes me tear up. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, production company, we're going to be super ADD with this conversation.
My biggest passion right now has been a passion of mine for so many years. I've worked on multiple different shows, but right now it's called The Search for Soul, and it's about finding the wisdom keepers of the world and exploring the blue zones of the world and cultivating all of this content that really is here to feed people good media, changing media into medicine. And it's a show that's changed my entire life. And I think just that alone is worth sharing. I think that's the point in creating art in general. It's like, can we create something from a place of our own personal growth, right?
Yeah.
And so creating this, the care and the love that I've put into this, the care and the love that I've put into the people that I'm interviewing and the editing of it, I ended up editing a lot of it myself, and I'm just digesting and consuming all of this information again and again. It just, thank God I did that. Thank God we start out these crazy dreams and these wild projects, and the work that goes into it is what you really get out of it. So I'm just so grateful that I gifted myself this opportunity to create something like this. And I have a team of people that actually believe in it, because I've grown and learned so much. And it's been so fucking hard. Growth is not easy. Growing pains are real. It's not an easy ride, but it's so powerful and transformative. And just the creation of the first episode, you were a huge catalyst too, by the way. You being a part of the editing process and just coming and helping me sift through like how many terabytes of footage, and you just being there for me in that and being a fuck yes energy to all of it. I don't know where I'd be without you even involved from the very beginning. So thank you so much. It's been such a wild ride. And so I had this crazy, beautiful experience shooting this first episode in Italy. And I got to go to Sardinia, which is one of the blue zones. And then from there, I went and sat with tribes in Lake Orta from all over the world, the most ancient tribe that exists in Colombia, and then Ecuador. And I sat with Aya and Wachuma, and I had a lot of courage to be. I can't believe, like, I can't believe the courage that I had to do all of this for a show, but the growth that came from that. And then I just finished a huge portion of the second episode, which is the America episode, and I highlighted this woman who's one of my greatest teachers. Her name's Reverend Brianna Lynn, and she's been a teacher of mine for years and years. But I just joined her school called the Liberation Mystery School, and it's all about the card that you pulled, the wolf card, the freedom, and the
I can get that.
words, freedom, liberation, just like the
wildness, freedom, and belonging was the wolf card.
It's that. Yeah. And right now, I think the most powerful thing is having a community of people around, because there's so much happening on the planet. It's so easy to get caught up in the individualism and the scrolling and the phone stuff and the separation, the division between so many different people and countries. And it's a scary time right now. And I think we need community more than ever before. And that feeling of liberation and that feeling of freedom.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit just for people that don't know some of the things that you shared. So what are wisdom keepers? What is a blue zone? What's Aya and Wachuma? What are some of these things that people might not know about?
That's a great question, Amanda. Thank you for asking that.
You're so welcome.
So a blue zone, there are 5 blue zones on the planet, and they're the happiest, healthiest, longest living people that exist on the planet. So they're locations that are full of centenarians, people who live past 100 years old, and they're happy and they're healthy. And so for me, I heard about this and I was like, well, I want to meet these people. I feel like we have such a disconnection from our elders in America, our parents and our grandparents. We put them in nursing homes and we don't learn from them. And to be fair, a lot of our ancestors are not necessarily the healthiest. And so when I hear about these places that have very healthy and happy people, past 100 years old, that to me just like my mind explodes. And I'm like, how do we go there? I want to meet them. I want to do that. I want to do all the things. And so that's what a blue zone is. And so,
Amazing.
and then wisdom keepers, I think everybody is a wisdom keeper. Everybody has wisdom. Every single person on the planet has a nugget of wisdom. And my love of travel, my favorite thing to do is travel to different places on the planet and find the people the most likely not to have a platform to share their wisdom and get the wisdom from all of these different places. Like, we're all here for a reason. We all hold different knowledge, like sacred knowledge, and our ancestors do as well. So it's really about, tapping into the people and the places on the planet that I think really do deserve that platform and that voice, and the search for them, and it's been life-changing for me. So I'm doing something right.
Dude, and by the way, guys, so I've been a part of this project since the very beginning. Dana shared with me all the early versions of the clips. Eventually, we're going to go to Costa Rica together and shoot one of the episodes. All these things are happening. One of the things that I think is really special about the way you approach your work and the way that you approach life and the way that you travel is, I think so many people go on vacation but don't actually travel, right? Just because you're in a new location, if you're staying, I used this example earlier today. I was like, yeah, you can go to Abu Dhabi and stay at a 5-star hotel and get in your black car Uber. I don't know if they have black car Ubers there, but I'm making it up. Whatever location you're in, whatever exotic location you're in, especially people that come from a lot of money and have this type of wealth. It's so sad to think about that so many of them go to all these different places but don't actually experience them.
The rich of a place.
For a variety of reasons that I don't even think it's just the uber wealthy. I think, us as Americans, we tend to do this where we want to go to the places that feel safe. And so I'm using air quotes for you listeners. But we want to go to the places that feel safe. And so in doing that, we are missing out on places that are less known about, right? Places that are less Americanized. And 2, we're missing out on genuinely experiencing the culture of a place, of looking up from our phone, of not Yelping the best restaurant in Mexico, but just walking down the street and finding a cool taco shop. Like,
Totally. And being in the mystery of what can potentially happen. Maybe you can meet somebody and you can ask them what their favorite food is or where their favorite place is. And it's somebody that lives there. I mean, how many times have you traveled and you end up walking down the street and you have no plans and you meet somebody and they're like, do you want to come over our house, our family's house for dinner? And then you end up spending the next 3 days with them. And you learn so much about the culture and their family and those precious moments that if you were going on Yelp or looking at a really cool Instagram picture or trying to get that photo on the swing in Bali, even though it's a really beautiful photo. I
have that photo.
But it's like
but it's ridiculous. But I can also see the ridiculousness of it. I think there's a really interesting point to that too, though, is that I believe the reason why and I'm going to say we because you and I attracted each other because we live really similarly. Not only do I do that when I'm on vacation, I do that all the time. That's how I live life. That's how you live life. And that's why, going back to the beginning of this, why crazy, amazing shit happens to us all the time. Because we're walking around like, what's going to happen today? I wonder. Who knows?
We'll see. In the mystery.
It's
not a to-do list.
In the mystery, in the curiosity, in the play. I mean, by the way, you and I both are very hardworking people. We have our disciplined days. We have our days where we lock ourselves in our apartments and, like a day like today where I had to do prep for the podcast and I'm working on this and I'm working on my course and we're disciplined. We have our shit. But then I schedule days, especially, I've been in New York for the last 2 months.
You've been killing it on your days that you're like, I'm just going to go out and see what happens.
Literally, you want to know what my plan is on those days? I wake up and I go, I'm going to go to the park today.
I love it.
That's my plan. My plan is to go to the park. And then I walk into the park and then I hear music. And then I go, I wonder where that music is. And I walk to the music. Then I go, oh, it's so nice out. I'm just going to sit on this rock and listen to this music. And then I sit there, and then the guy that's playing the music comes over to me and asks me what my name is. And I chat with him and I stay. And then I end up staying there for 2 hours and we make friends. And then I'm like, oh, okay, nice to meet you. And then I walk a few other steps, and then I meet some man roller skating. And then he buys me roller skates. And then he's like, I'll teach you how to roller skate. I'm like, great. And then I have that experience. And then I walk a little bit more, and someone goes, oh, have you seen this really beautiful viewpoint over here? And I'm like, sure, let's go. And then I walk over there, and then it's nighttime.
I love it.
But on those days, and by the way, we're not like that every day, but on the days when I'm like that, those are the best days of my life. Those are the most magical, amazing, fun, cool, great days. But on those days, I notice other people, right? When I'm sitting on that rock, I'm looking at how many people are just walking by, not even looking up. How many people are missing it? They're missing it. And where are you going? We're in the park. You want to know who the only people are that actually are paying attention to what's going on?
Older people.
And
kids.
It's the kids.
Yeah.
It's the kids. Yeah. The kids are the only ones that are like, ooh, wow, look at that. Bubbles, cool. And
totally. Oh God, I can never not chase bubbles.
Oh my God. The other day in the park on one of my adventure days, there was a guy that had this really big bubble maker, like the giant ones that are like bigger than your whole body. And I went over there and I paid $5 so that I could do it.
Exactly. When did we lose our childlike wonder of the world? That's the thing. It's really rebellious to fight against this system in a way, and like the to-do list and the work and the going here and the doing this and the just calming it all down to just look around in absolute wonder. We were all like that at one point.
Well, I also feel like it's shamed out of us as well. Yeah. I know until I met people like you, right? Mm-hmm. For so long, I was spending time in circles that were not in alignment with me. And so I was around people that tried to dim my light. I was around people that if I was skipping, they would be like, why are you doing that?
Right.
Or if I would make loud noises, they'd be like, that's annoying. Stop. It made me feel like I was bad. I was wrong. There was something like broken inside of me. And it wasn't until I came out to California and I started doing ecstatic dance and I met like-minded people and I found the fucking hippies of the world. And I was like, oh, I wasn't wrong. I was doing it right. But the piece of it is I had one guy that I dated. I'll never forget this man. I think you met him.
Really?
You might be. We'll talk offline. I don't name drop on this podcast. But I remember he was so off put by me. By me. Yeah. I was like, how are you dating me if you don't even like me? He only was like, oh, I don't like this piece of you. But I was like, that is me. This piece of me is who I am and how I show up. But from his perspective, because I think it was so antithetical to how he showed up, he saw my loudness, my wildness, my silliness. From his perspective, he thought that I was doing it for attention. And it made me question myself for a second. I was told that a lot as a kid too, like stop trying to draw attention to yourself, like blah, 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 blah. And really thinking about it though, I'm like, I don't do it for attention. This is who I be. This is how
your expression. Why judge it regardless?
Like I'm not doing this as a performance. I'm not skipping and being loud and being silly. I'm not trying to do anything.
Yeah. How many kids do you see do that though? How many children do you see? So many children. They skip and they laugh and they scream and they cry and they're all expressing genuinely their emotions and
Yeah.
life is flowing through them. And we don't sit there and shit on little Sally for, wanting to run through the sprinkler and scream. But like as a grown adult, we want to judge people because we've suppressed that expression, that joy, that expression of joy in ourselves. And it's like, it's very clear to me. And I have also questioned myself and how much of it is because I've also been like very judged.
Yeah. Which is
And
such a shame.
I just remember that people who would judge though were like the most unhappy. And I'm like, well, I'd prefer to be over here anyway.
Right. It's like, don't take life advice from someone who's not living a life that you want, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I just remember meeting you, and I've never met somebody that can energize me, and you are like leaps and bounds, but the most pure, I don't even know how to describe you to people. Like, you are such a magical little gift to this world, and we all have so much to learn from just the way that you show up, the way that you express, the way that you play, the way that you are so interested and curious. I think curious is such a beautiful word for you, because there's this beautiful, genuine curiosity about life, about the world, about other people that like oozes out of you, that really makes you so magnetic as a human being.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just do me. Right? Like we're just doing ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't thank you for that reflection.
Yeah,
I received that. I received that. Thank you.
But you doing you gives other people permission to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
It really does. I know, like, whether people say it to you or not, people are thinking it constantly, where it's just like, wow, okay. Adam, I had him on the podcast a little bit ago.
Yeah, the permission slip.
Yeah, his beautiful quote of like, we are the human permission slips. Just us being us gives other people permission to just be themselves. Crazy that we need permission, but we do.
Right. It's so true. I want to note on all of the expressions, on all of them, not just like people love me and my joy. People love my sunshine, but I'm like, wait till you see my sunset, motherfucker. Right?
Yo, I talk about that on this podcast a lot too, that people often don't realize, especially the people, this is my theory, and it's proven true, every single person I've met. I truly, truly, truly believe that the people that you meet in this life that are the happiest, that are the most outgoing, that are the brightest, they shine the brightest, they only get to experience that and be that because they also have the capacity and the depth to go to the dark places. Absolutely. You can't have one without the other. Absolutely. It sucks. Like, it's annoying.
Yeah. Right. No,
but you have to, when you say yes, you're saying yes to it all.
It's so true. You can't just be in your joy and cut off your sadness and your grief and your rage. I know from my own personal experience, I've not allowed myself to feel grief and like really, really deep sadness in my life. And that completely eliminates my capacity for joy too. When you cut off one emotion, you're cutting all of them off. And so you have to give yourself permission to go through all of it. And that, we're human. That's like the human experience. We signed up for this shit. We're human beings. We're here to feel all of it. It's always going to be a roller coaster up and down. It's like, how do we want to navigate it?
And if we don't make time and space in our daily practices to feel things, I'll give you a great example. I literally had a panic attack meltdown yesterday in the middle of Central Park. Seemingly from nothing, right? And my mom called me and told me she was coming into the city a day earlier than she was supposed to. And I was like, what? I had a meltdown. But it wasn't about that. It was about the 18 other things that I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. And then I booked myself out, and I was so busy and I had all these things going on. I was like, I don't have time for a panic attack. I don't have time for it. I was like, I got shit to do. And I had to sit there for like 2 hours. I came home, and one of my favorite practices that I do, and I'd love, if you have any tips or tricks of when you get into like heightened states, for me, water helps a lot. So if I'm feeling really intense emotions or just overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, getting in a hot shower, and then I turn it cold, just feeling water on my body it just helps bring me back into my body, because those feelings are making me feel like, and it just like, it brings me back. It regulates my nervous system, and it makes me like, okay.
Yeah, you're changing your physiology. Whenever we feel, that's interesting you say that. Before I go on stage, a lot of times I feel like I'm going to shit my pants. And the only thing that works is doing breath work, is deep breathing. And you can literally change your body, the position of your body, breathe deeply, and trick your body into feeling confident. And so I'll prepare myself before I go on stage in that way. And I've noticed since I started doing that, such a dramatic shift in the way that I perform, the way that I show up. Because you're tricking your body. Every time we change our physiology, we can shift our emotions. And so that's like, yeah, nervousness and anxiety for me, like that's a huge one. And I never really was like that accountable with it until I realized when I wasn't getting nervous and anxious, I'm like, oh, wow, I was just living like that my whole life. And like, how do I regulate anxiety? And the breath is changing our physical body. I started doing cold plunges and saunas as well, because that really
favorite things to do on the planet. Like, it's so good.
Oh my God, I love a good ice bath. But if you don't have the means for it, because it's very expensive, it's hard to find if you're not in a big city, a cold shower always. But I find
even right at the end, even taking a hot shower, and I just turn it all the way cold, and I just let the water hit me, and I just like.
Yep. That's a really good idea. A shower. Yeah. Water.
It always calms me down. Typically, whenever I'm doing, any type of a ceremony as well, I always find that at some point in the ceremony, the medicine is like, hey, get in water right now, right now, right now. And I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Before we start class and we go into prayer and just speaking with each other for my school, we always do BSMT, breath, sound, movement, touch.
Okay.
And so it's very similar to before I go on stage. You just are getting in your body. You're embodying presence and using your breath, using sound, listening to music, using touch, breath, sound, movement, and then touch, physical touch, touching your body. It's crazy. Like when we have emotions, like anger and rage, it's like taking a shit. It's supposed to go through you, and like if we don't allow that to happen, if we don't start moving let it to move, through us, it's going to stay with us. It's going to get us sick. It's going to give us cancer. So the best thing we can do with any like intense emotion, which we're going to constantly feel because the world is absolutely bananas, is being accountable with our physical body and changing our physiology. That's what I would say.
And that's how we met too. We met through dance. We met through ecstatic dance, through this, ecstatic dance on the beach in Venice, California, free flow movement, and allowing emotions and rage and sensuality and beauty and sadness and everything. And just like getting down in the sand.
It is so amazing. I did not grow up that way. I grew up on the East Coast with 2 older brothers. I used to drink their creatine. I wanted to be a dude. I did not have a sensual bone in my body, even though I do, but I didn't. I was afraid of it. And so it took me a lot to recognize. I was always trying to prove my strength with like sports and stuff. I was a huge athlete growing up. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I moved to California and I was like, wow.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about the school that you're doing. And I want to preface this with saying, I'm going to give you another compliment. This whole podcast is just going to be me complimenting you because I'm your fucking biggest fan. We all know the world is crazy right now. Like so fucking crazy. And especially within our community, and I'm sure many other people's communities, it has caused a lot of division.
So much.
They're obviously very, very sensitive topics, and people are either extremely outspoken about them in easily aggressive and offensive ways, and or are not speaking on them at all.
Yeah.
I have been in the camp of having conversations offline about these things because I don't feel safe and comfortable having them online, particularly because of my lack of education in as to what exactly is going on. And just one big compliment I want to share with you before you kind of talk a little bit about what you're learning and how you're learning to show up is I have looked to you throughout the last, what has it been, year of the chaos in the world. And you are somebody who is outspoken in the most level-headed, peaceful, kind, considerate to all parties way humanly possible. And I think that so many of us have so much to learn from the way in which you approach these conversations and shed light on information. And I just want to commend you for that, because you've been one of the only people that is outspoken in a way that's not, it doesn't feel like an attack.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like you're attacking anyone. And it doesn't feel like you're sitting in the middle saying, oh, peace, love, and harmony. So I would love, one, for you to share a little bit about the school, a little bit about what you're learning. And then maybe if you can give a little bit of advice to listeners about
how to navigate these times.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful for my school, because my teacher, she's very firm. She's also a massive, huge academic. Brianna Lynn has been studying, she's been studying like big oil since she was 8 years old. And that moved into studying just the wars on the planet. And her studies are intense and worldly. And so it's not just like her academic background, it's more so her heart. The way that her heart is connected to what she learns and how she can implement her knowledge in a way that is based in a lot of love and understanding for the planet, which is just a projection of the work that she's done for herself. And so knowledge really, it only goes so far. It's like emotional intelligence, how we navigate our own personal trauma and how we show up for ourselves is really like we're just projecting constantly. So I was very attracted to her because of the way that she loves. Because at the end, it's not the only thing that really matters is how much did we love and how much did we do that out loud. And so the people that show me that, I'm like, I want to learn from you, and you are my teacher. Everybody's my teacher. Life is my teacher. I'm constantly a student, but she personally, I'm just so attracted to because of that. Right. And I try to find people in my life that are very similar to this, and she's just very rare. And so I started studying from her in Liberation Mystery School. And honestly, I'm learning a lot about the planet and what's going on globally, the geopolitical wars, the genocides, the homicides, the suicides, everything that's what she calls it, the poly crisis. And it's very much here, but it's more so what I'm learning is that we don't know shit. We don't know shit. And I'm very lucky because I've traveled the globe a lot, and I have friends all over the world, and I have friends that are in a lot of the countries that are suffering right now, whether it's the oppressor or the oppressed. And so I'm not Xing out anybody. Thank God I'm not doing that, because if people looked at America and wanted to just generalize Americans as awful people, we wouldn't like that, would we? We all have our own individual person, and we all have our hearts, and we all have our desires and our families. I want to look at people as people, even the people in power, right? So my advice is, I think if we all just really understand that we don't really know what's going on, and the only thing we can control is ourself and our heart and our scrolling and our, like, how much can we stay grounded and centered in the midst of chaos, and how much can we love each other and open our eyes and our hearts to all perspectives. Like, my algorithm on Instagram is fucking confused, because I follow all sides, both sides. I try to get as many different perspectives as I possibly can. And that's one thing I love about myself, is the fact that I'm open to understanding different parts and different segments and different nuances and different things. One thing I do stand for is liberation for all beings being one being. My teacher Brianna talks a lot about that, and sticking up for the most oppressed on the planet and the mothers and the children. I think there's no moving away from that. I think the mothers and the children are, we should all be standing for that. When the Titanic was sinking, it was like, mothers and children, get on the boats first, let's save them. I just think that the planet, no matter what, I stand for that. But I think recognizing that I don't know anything and I'm open to learning. And it's like this, it's a projection, right? I'm like, there's still so much to learn about myself, and whatever's triggering me, I really have to genuinely look at, because I've been highly triggered, and I'm not the only one. I know I'm not alone there, but all of the wars on the planet and us all witnessing it for the first time in our life.
Yeah.
How many generations? This is the first time ever that we are like soldiers, like witnessing what's going on, the brutality of the planet. So it's very easy to get sucked into that. And it's like, how much can we love in the midst of that? How much can we love ourselves in the midst of it? Be gentle with ourselves. Be loving to our families. Be curious with others. Like, I don't want to lose friends over this. I don't want to say, like, you can't be my friend if you believe this. I want to understand where you come from, because that's one thing that people aren't doing. People are very divided. People are taking sides, but how much are we willing and open to understand each other?
And I think especially even within this country, we've had some crazy news today in terms of elections and all the things. And I think that, again, this is a topic that people, like, you're taught as a child not to talk politics because it's rude, And so if you're not allowed to talk politics at a dinner party and your teachers aren't allowed to talk to you about it, then all you're learning it from is your parents and now social media, right? And I'm so with you. Like, that's my stance as well. And it's not, the biggest piece of it that breaks my heart, whether it comes to the global crises, crises.
One big global crisis, the crises.
Whether it's on a global scale or it's even a more local scale, within our own country, is not playing into the division, right? There's all of this hate, there's all of this fighting, there's us versus them, and da 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 da. And yes, if you have a very particular stance, I understand that you have a stance. I get it. My stance is that, like, respect your stance and respect other stances, stay open and loving. I've lost a lot of friends over this, and people have been outspoken about this, and it's creating division in a way that I don't think is necessary, because I think that there's already so much division that if you're being outspoken, be outspoken because you want to be outspoken. I have seen people on the internet shaming and judging other people for not showing up the way that they're showing up. And I don't feel like that's fair to do. If you want to be outspoken about it, I do it. And if I don't want to be outspoken about it, I don't have the right to judge you for being outspoken about it. And you don't have the right to judge me for not being outspoken about it. And I think that even that element, right? We're not even talking about sides. We're just talking about freedom to express our opinion in a safe space, in a safe way.
Totally. I think what people don't understand is I can say free Palestine, and I can also say, what is your experience? Natalie, for example, who's in Tel Aviv, what are you going through right now? How is this affecting you and your family and your community? Like, all things can exist. And that's what I'm experiencing. And I think the shaming is very interesting, because I grew up when I was very little, people would make fun of my dad for being different, and they would call him retarded. And I just remember being a little girl, and I just learned to stick up for him. I learned not to judge him. I learned to embrace him. And that took courage and that took strength. That didn't come from anybody else having my back. I didn't look to the other students and say, why are you not telling him to stop making fun of my dad? It brought out something in me that I had to allow brought out on my own. Like, that's like true courage.
Like a self-responsibility almost as well, of like not.
Yes. Like, it's not dependent on you. I'm not going to give my energy and shame you for not saying anything. Sometimes people don't know. Sometimes people go through it differently. I have no idea what it's like to be anybody else. All I know is how I'm processing things. And I know that I'm being personally very courageous in the way that I'm addressing things, but I'm also very careful. And I'm also trying to be very curious and understanding of others. And so that meant so much to me earlier when you said that I don't come across like I'm attacking anyone else, because I noticed how much shaming is happening right now. And nobody really knows. Social media is such an interesting place. It's never like full and absolute truth, and maybe people are doing things outside of social media, having conversations outside of social media. Maybe their family is going through a lot currently, and somebody is connected to somebody who just passed, or maybe they just lost their parent and it has nothing to do with it, and they're not going to be speaking up about this because they're going through their own trauma and shit. We're all like being raised into this, society that is very difficult to even function, especially in America.
Yeah.
I think we have it it's a difficult place to be raised in, as privileged as we are, which we are. And I will never, say I'm not. It's still very hard to be a part of this rat racing society where we're not taught that we can even address our emotions and our trauma and our parents' trauma. And it's everybody has it hard, I think, on the planet as a whole. And so we shouldn't expect anything of anyone. We should just expect ourselves to try and be accountable and as loving as we possibly can.
Yes. Yeah. Subscribe, follow. Yes. Well, I think this segues us really beautifully into, I've never done this on the podcast before, but I am so in love with your spoken word poetry that if you feel called and comfortable, I'd love for you to share.
Sure. I've never done it on a podcast either. I would love to.
I feel like it ties really beautifully and will help maybe bring us there will never be any closure, but I think some level of peace.
Yeah.
To this topic.
Yeah. It's like naming the shit. In our lives, I feel like one of the most important things is to not like sugarcoat things, not to brush over things, like be very accountable and aware of what we've been through and who we are, and not be like, I used to just think I was so privileged that I couldn't even name the shit in my life. I wasn't good enough to even name the shit. There's so many emotions in my life that I've gone through and that have forced me not in the direction of looking at my shit. Yeah. And until I really named it and owned it, I wasn't like a full person. I was like,
that was my whole experience stepping into the medicine space and in the personal development space, because I grew up so privileged, not only in this country, but just in my personal family. I grew up in a really nice family that I never had to worry where my meals were coming from, and that my parents, that I was going to have a home, like, all these things that we take for granted. And so, my parents have grown so much since raising us, because they, our parents were just doing the best that they could do at the time that they had us. But when I was growing up, my parents made it a point to tell me how privileged I was, and to remind me to not forget how privileged I was. And that did something to me in making me feel like I didn't have the right to complain, that I didn't have the right to look back on my childhood and say that I experienced any type of hardship because I had so much. How dare I, and that wasn't the fault of my parents, looking back on it now, like, they didn't know. But that took a lot of work for me. I think people that have had, they call it like capital T and lowercase t trauma, right? Capital T trauma are the things that you think of when you think of trauma. And lowercase t are the things that you don't think of that are still traumatic, that are the ways in which, people speak to you and the way people treat you, and, emotionally immature parents and all the things. And so for me, stepping into the wellness space and doing my own healing journey, I had a really hard time at the beginning, even acknowledging that I had anything to heal from, because I was taught, you're fine, everything's great.
Isn't that wild? That's actually a huge part of my journey as well. I was on a podcast a year ago and my parents listened to it, and I was asked about my childhood, and I was being very honest in the podcast, and I was like, well, I had a really hard childhood. And my parents heard it
And they were upset.
And they were like, yeah, they didn't know how to take it. Yeah. And they, you know, and I can understand. They're like, well, what did we do? Wait, I thought you had a great childhood. I was so good as a child at protecting my parents, my dad especially, that the things that I went through as a kid, I hid.
Yeah.
And that was out of like protecting them. And so when they got kind of upset with me, I was like, oh, we got to talk. And it was at the same time that I had just written this poem I'm about to share. And this poem is so powerful and potent to me in my personal life, because not only was it the first time I actually really thought about my childhood and was honest with myself, I shared it with my parents.
Wow.
I read this poem to my parents,
wow.
shaking like in front of them.
Oh my God, I have chills up my whole body right now.
Oh my God, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
In my life. And it was kind of like, oh God, it makes me, I'm not going to cry yet.
I know, I'm going to cry right now too. But like, we're going to end the podcast in tears.
But it really was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But it also was the most empowering, the most powerful, the most like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I know you can handle it.
Yeah.
I know you can handle my truth. I know that, you know, it's funny, like this poem totally changed my life. Poetry, art has changed my life. It's like making beauty out of all of it, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so to be able to share that with my parents.
And to be able to share it with others as well. I'm asking you to share this because I remember the first time I heard this poem, I heard you speak it out loud, and I thought about it for like weeks and weeks. And you have it posted on your Instagram, and I go randomly and listen to it and watch it. It's one of the most powerful pieces of art I think I've ever seen. And I want to share it with my audience, and I want to talk about it a little bit after. And yeah, I'm just going to let you do it. I just am so excited. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just do it. It's about being a woman. I am a woman. I've been pushed, shoved, shut up, drugged, bullied, raped, inappropriately touched. I've been jumped for asking a girl to say sorry, for calling my sick, disabled dad retarded once. I've had 2 black eyes from being punched, unable to explain to my parents what happened the next day at lunch. I've been cheated on and crushed. My sexuality was rushed. My needs since a child were barely even brushed. I've disordered my eating. I was overachieving. I hated the pharmaceutical industry for destroying my dad, and I abused it simultaneously. I've stuffed down my anger. I've thrown up my dinner. I've starved myself to be thinner. I thought beauty was being pretty. I depended on my parents financially, and I'm still dabbling in shame over all of this. Actually, I've abandoned my own needs so many times, and with all of my exes, I punched my first real love in the face for cheating while I was 17 and 2 months pregnant. I've aborted. My heart's been slayed. I've wished for my life to be different. I've prayed. I've had no worth. Like none. And I felt an entire childhood like I'm just a girl. But I still believe in this world, and I still believe in the beauty that exists in each and every person's heart and the power of it. The ones reminding me that compassion is our life's catalyst. More and more, my chest, it beats for that girl. I'm slowing down. I'm sinking in all the ways. This life has been such a powerful journey within and without the shame and the doubt. My past doesn't define me. I've laid it all down. I've practiced radical forgiveness, but not until I got brave enough to courageously witness and fully receive the lessons to grieve a girl that I prayed into the very woman's existence here that you see. I thank all of it because it's made me me. I have so much empathy, and I value value my integrity. I can't sacrifice any bit of who I am if I want to fully feel free. I can't abandon any longer my inner child's deepest needs. And what's crazy is at the end of the day, it's not even about me. It's us. So can we speak the things we hold shame about together with love? Can we unlearn the ways raised and get curious about this stuff? And can we stop hating men so they can also fully show up? It's not where I've been or the people that have hurt me. It's about peeling back all the layers that aren't allowing me to fully be me. And what is that even? Like, I still dream up more magic in myself to believe in, while remembering wherever I am now, I'm enough. Wherever you are now, you're enough. I swear on everything I know and everyone I love, can we take up space in a place where we are meant to shine and learn to rise above? Our heartbeat, it goes up and down just like this precious life, my love. And if I don't learn to love all of me, no one else can or deeply does. It's like watering a plastic plant, expecting it to grow when it's your soul that truly can't, because your truth, it must be told. It must unfold. All of it matters. And suddenly none of it really does, because who I am becoming now is not who I was. But I love her.
Wow. Wow. Every time it gets me, every time. Wow. Wow. You're welcome, audience. You're welcome. Isn't she amazing? Wow.
It's so crazy.
I feel like I'm so happy I saved that for the end of this conversation, because I feel like you literally just touched on every single topic that we talked about. Everything from saying yes to opportunities, to leading life with curiosity, to engaging with people with compassion and holding space for ourselves and others. I mean, man, we really talked about it all. I was worried. I mean, we're going a little over my normal time right now, but I was like, with Dana, this could be a 3-day conversation. It's going to be a festival, man.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you and for your vulnerability and for your art and your beauty and the way you show up. I'm so happy that I get to share all of your magic with all of my listeners, and all of your listeners get to hear all of my favorite pieces of you. If you have any kind of closing thoughts, key takeaways that you'd like to leave the audience with, and then also anything upcoming or ways in which people can find you to engage with you, this is your invitation to share all the things.
Oh my gosh, what have we learned? Let's see. Staying in our curiosity, staying in the flow of life, remembering to balance our life from our scrolling time, our to-do lists, and like really making time for being in the flow of life.
Yeah.
And the magic. Yeah. Naming the shit. That's good.
Allow yourself to be honest about what you've experienced and what you're experiencing, and not shaming yourself or coming up with excuses as to why, you didn't go through what you went through.
Totally. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I wrote a poem about that. People can go on my Instagram to see. I have a poem all about shame, and it's like
we're gonna tag all of her links below. Check out her whole feed. She's amazing.
So you can follow me on Instagram, Dana May with 2 Y's. My website's danamayjamison.com. I have some shows coming up, some comedy and poetry. I do stand-up comedy too.
She's funny as heck. She's funny. She's beautiful. She's talented. She's a catch.
And I'm single. What?
She's a world traveler.
I'm like all the things that you are and why we're so connected. I love it. I love you.
I love you. Well, thank you again so much for coming on.
So much fun.
So much fun. Literally, yeah. How does this even work?
I know. I'm excited to watch and listen over. Usually I'm like, I don't want to look at that, or I don't want to watch that. But it felt so good, you know?
So good. I'm so grateful for you, Dana. Thank you for all the work that you're doing in the world and for the light that you're shining on others. And yeah, I just love you. Mwah. Stay tuned for the next episode, guys. So happy to have you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.